What is up guys, Stu here. So this weekend a little film called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, may have heard of it. Don't know, it's a small independent underground film. I went out and saw it, so let's talk about that shit. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, if you haven't guessed it, is the sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know what gave that away. Very subtle title. And if that slipped you by, because maybe you live in a rock, or you are cryogenically frozen waiting to be woken up by Chris Pratt in the middle of a spaceship on your way to a new colony in a very, very creepy way. People don't address how creepy Passengers is, it still gets me. But yeah, if you didn't know, Guardians of the Galaxy was a big surprise hit for Marvel. No one really knew much about the Guardians of the Galaxy because it was one of the kind of underrated, obscure comics. But yeah, that one crept out of nowhere, everyone loved it, me included there. I think it was a wicked film, just awesome, probably one of the best in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so a sequel was inevitable, and obviously people were very excited, again me included, because the first one was so rad. I was just so excited to see what they'd do with the second one. And James Gunn is a great director, he's proven himself before, and I was excited as hell for this one. It was one of my most anticipated films of 2017 going into the year. And so, how does it do? Well, yeah, it was fucking awesome. I love this film. The film takes place a little while after the events of the first one. And, I mean, there's a load of shit going on in this film, but the main story is that the Guardians are doing their thing, guarding the galaxy, as they do. And then they bump into a long-lost relative of a character, and we just sort of have a big old adventure from there. And again, we got the cast which we loved from the first one returning, giving fantastic performances again. Chris Pratt in the lead as Star-Lord is fantastic. How can you not love Chris Pratt at this point? The guy is wicked. I mean, I'll let him off for Jurassic World. Bad film, but he was fun in it. But everything else he's done is just so much fun in. And with the role of Star-Lord, you can just tell he is having so much fun and he's got it down to a T. And so just watching actors doing roles like that is always fun. He's wicked, and again, he's hilarious. His comic timing is spot on. But the rest of the team are also fantastic. Zoe Saldana's there as well. Again, she's pretty wonderful, but at the same time, I think has a little bit less of a role in this one than she does in the first one, so she isn't quite as amazing as the first one, but she's still wicked. Bradley Cooper's Rocket Raccoon is, again, really awesome. He's just a really dry character, and I love that shit, and yeah, I thought he was fantastic. He's clearly, again, having fun with the role, so I like that shit. But the standouts for me in this one, compared to the first one, is easily Dave Bautista as Drax and Vin Diesel as Groot. The two of them just kind of killed me in this film. Drax, while he is a sort of one-note character for the most part, I really enjoyed him in this film. Again, Dave Bautista kind of surprised me in that he's clearly having a lot of fun with this role, and he nails it. He is really great as Drax, and I just enjoyed everything he did on screen in this one. It was wicked. But Baby Groot in this film was just magical on basically every level. Exactly what I wanted from Baby Groot. There was a big fear that it would be like, oh, it's just cute Baby Groot, and that can get a little bit annoying sometimes, just because it seems like they might just be doing it to sell t-shirts and stuff with Baby Groot on and get people going, oh, Baby Groot. But I completely got sucked into all of that in this one. I was just, every time he was on screen, I was like, oh, Baby Groot. But he killed me, fucking killed me. Groot is magical in this film. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, right from the get-go, from the very opening scene, you're just like, yeah, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Yes, thank you, Baby Groot. And I'm also still amazed that Vin Diesel's probably getting a large sum of money just purely for saying 3 words in a film. Love it. Someone get me his job, please. Also a nice cameo from Stan Lee, that was fun. Just, who doesn't love Stan Lee? I want him to cameo in my life forever. So yeah, solid performances from everyone in the cast. But the main thing I really enjoyed about their performances, which I'll get into a little bit with the writing and direction in this one, is their kind of sense of comic timing and the humour in them. All of the performances are a lot more funny than the first one. They are all a little bit more demanding in that sense, and I think they all nail it in that sense. So it just ends up being a lot of actors who are clearly very comfortable in the characters that they've got at this point, and they're just having fun, and they're just nailing a lot of comic delivery, and that just makes for a fun time. You can't not have a fun time watching that. I just loved it. That bleeds into the other really cool stuff about this film, those being the direction and the writing from James Gunn, who smashed it again. I really, really enjoyed this effort from him. It's wicked. James Gunn has really nailed the tone of the Guardians of the Galaxy universe. And so at this point, 2 films in, I feel like he can do so much more than he could in the first one. And he's just completely free from any reins. And he's just having fun with it. And that's the most important thing with this one. It is just a fun film through and through. I think that's probably the thing I appreciate the most about this film, is that at no point through watching this film, through the entire 2-hour runtime, did I ever feel like James Gunn's vision wasn't being allowed to get across. I didn't ever feel like I could hear or see studio executives or big money men breathing down his neck being like, oh no, don't do that, let's do this. It felt like James Gunn's vision through the entire runtime, and that is so refreshing to get from a superhero film or a film that's in a cinematic universe at this point. It's something that we're starting to see a lot more of, and I'm just so happy we are seeing more of that. But I think that kind of sense of freedom for James Gunn as a director and a writer in this one means that it is a little bit different to the first one in many different ways. The first of those being that this one does feel a little bit more like just an all-out comedy film. I think the screenplay includes a lot more kind of one-liners or quips or little jokes and payoffs than the first one did. And for a lot of people that might put you off and make it just feel like, I guess, characters are popping up and saying lines that are funny and then you're just sort of moving on and going through the film. I can see where that criticism would come from, but for me, I just thought it was hilarious. And the fact that the jokes are being delivered by these characters that have been so wonderfully built up in the first one makes it all the more impactful and just much more effective from a comedy side of things. There are definitely a few jokes which don't land as well as I think it's intending to, which is somewhat inevitable when you've got this many jokes in a film. But for the most part, I genuinely thought it was hilarious. There were a few moments I was actually full on laughing out loud. But it's also a screenplay which takes the time to dive into a few more deeper themes than we've seen before, and I really enjoyed that aspect of things as well. It was a surprisingly very moving and poignant film. I genuinely teared up a lot. There are kind of similar but deeper themes connecting all of the characters in this film, and I do think that James Gunn did, on the whole, a very good job of weaving those all together. Sometimes that can feel like it comes at the expense of certain character relationships, in the sense that there are so many kind of relationships being explored here between two characters at a time, basically. It sort of feels like the characters are bunched off into different relationships which then get explored, and so with that, inevitably some relationships feel a little bit more in the forefront than others, but I don't think that necessarily detracts too much from it. And I think there are definitely some relationships which need to be at the forefront over others. Maybe some are setting up for future films, and maybe some are just more relevant to the actual full story as a whole in this one, so I appreciated that. But I think that is kind of understandably what's led a lot of people to be like, this feels a little bit more messy as a film. Because the screenplay does jump around a lot. It's something that I think is there, and I acknowledge, but it never really became a big problem for me, and I think that's down to the tone that's created by James Gunn, and also the characters that have been written by James Gunn. I kind of appreciated the weird messiness of it, despite the fact that I acknowledge that that may have been a flaw in the actual technical filmmaking of it. It's a weird one, that. This one felt a little bit more playful than the first one, if that was possible. The first one was hella playful, and one of the best things about that film is how much it just didn't really give a shit and did what it wanted. This one kind of amps that up to 11, and I really enjoyed that as well. There's a certain self-awareness to it, which again means it can get away with some flaws that are in the film, and that's a very hard thing to nail, I think. I think it goes a little bit underappreciated how hard it is to nail a tone like this in films, and so I'm just more in admiration at James Gunn for being able to pull it off. It's also a very good looking film, which is very refreshing to have from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is so vibrant and so colourful and just pops so well on the screen. It is just beautiful to look at. I saw this one in IMAX, which definitely had an impact in making me appreciate the visual a little bit more, I think, because it is the biggest screen in the UK, so that helps. But my goodness, some of the shots in this were just breathtaking to look at. And that's again one of those things where I think they're already at a bit of a advantage on that one, just because it's set in space, and space is always fun to look at. It is easily the best looking film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only competition really there coming from the first Guardians of the Galaxy, so James Gunn's doing a good job there. I do feel like it could have gone with a little, I don't want to say subtler approach, because it's Guardians of the fucking Galaxy. It's not a subtle film. There are certain moments where characters will almost kind of just say straight out the emotions that they're feeling or the deep theme that is being explored there, and I'm like, I kind of wish that was just left to kind of get found itself by us as an audience without you just telling us how to feel. There are a few moments that are a little bit like that. They're not completely like a character turns around and is like, feel sad, cry, bingo. That doesn't happen, but yeah, I just would have appreciated a little bit more subtlety to some of those themes. There are also moments, particularly towards the beginning, where characters will say things which are very on the nose, very sort of exposition heavy. It's one of those things where a character will say something to another character, which I'm like, in the actual world of the film, why the hell would they be saying that to them? Oh wait, it's because they're saying it to the audience. It's just exposition dialogue. Exposition dialogue has a place in a film. You know, we've got to be getting information across to an audience, and I think it does actually somehow pull it off because of the whole self-aware nature of the tone. But again, there are just moments in the beginning where I'm like, okay, I can see a screenplay as opposed to seeing these real characters saying that stuff. This is one of those films where, despite those flaws, I didn't really have too many problems with it. Nothing that actually impacted my experience in the moment. As I was watching it, I just fucking loved this film. I had so much fun with it. The first one is probably a technically better film, a little bit more concise. But this one was still just as fun. The characters I loved just as much, and it did have probably just as much emotional weight to it. So I'm going to go ahead and give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 a very high 4 stars. That could actually go up with future viewings though. I plan on seeing this one a couple more times in the cinema. I really did enjoy it that much. It was wicked. But what about you guys? Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 yet? Or are you still waiting for it to come out wherever you are around the world? If you've seen it, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you're waiting on it, let me know how excited you are on a scale of 1 to Nick Cage. As usual though, if you like this review and want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. But until next time, stay beautiful, mother truckers.